This episode is an intersection of stories of the 2 million federal employees facing a big decision, an autistic child named Josiah, and the backstory interview of Greg Zweber's professional gap year. Every story is unique, but there is a through line that makes this intersection quite compelling. It's at the crossroads of any big decision that we look for clarity, particularly through other stories. Stories generate a spark, an idea, and often influences our next steps. If you're navigating a big decision, I hope this episode will help you in your journey. And before I jump into the show, I would like to invite you to sign up for my weekly newsletter. If you weren't aware, the Work Life Eubiosis podcast is also a newsletter. The core content of the podcast and the newsletter are the same, but in the newsletter, there are more resources, inspiration, and special alerts that just don't quite fit into the format of this show. Hit pause and go sign up. It only takes 10 seconds and it's free. We'll be right back. You are listening to the Work Life Eubiosis podcast with your host, Charleston Edwards. If this is your first time here, welcome. My goal is simple: to eradicate burnout and to bring harmony, purpose, and balance to this world, starting with the family. My hope is that this show and the story shared will provide encouragement and ideas that will be valuable to you on your journey to work-life freedom. So let's dive into today's episode. We tend to keep our challenges in life close to the vest. Understandably so. There is preciousness in protecting our personal privacy as we navigate our oftentimes challenging paths. Sickness, death, oppression, mental health, shame, or being othered, just to name a few. We all have a cross to bear at some point in life. But what if our suffering, or even yet our survival, is meant for something else, something bigger, or even someone else? I was recently listening to a podcast where a lady mustered up the courage to write about her autistic son, Josiah, who was labeled by the world for his inability to talk, but his special ability to see the unseen world. This powerful story of a miraculous child in the book, Josiah's Fire, unlocked the door to other homes, other stories, in a brand new community. This brand new community has given Josiah's mom new hope and a new mission in life. She has found a new purpose, not only in her unique circumstances, but through a unique population that she never knew existed. Her voice, through Josiah's story, together serve a purpose much bigger than anyone could ever imagine. Most importantly, their story has brought people together. In communities, there is beauty in diversity, but there is also beauty in sharing similarities, sharing stories, sharing ideas, and sharing inspiration. In community, we can come to the intersection of our own journey to meet others, hear of other journeys without judgment, and then decide how we can proceed forward. Speaking of crossroads, there's an incredible and challenging intersection playing out in the U.S. federal government. Over 2 million workers are at the same crossroads at the same time. They have a decision to make by February 10th, at the time of this recording, to take an 8-month severance or potentially keep their job. Not knowing if the timeline for the decision is going to be extended or not, employees and their families are quickly navigating on what to do. The decision, in my perspective, is bigger than a job. It's a perfect cushion for some to pivot their work lives but it's an utter source of unnecessary heartache for others who have never thought about doing anything else in their career. What would you do? Or, you so happen to be part of the 2 million, what are you doing? A couple of years ago, I wrote a short article on the 5 steps to take before quitting your job, which can be found at ownyour5to9.com. There is wisdom in this article for anyone and everyone who may be at a work-life crossroads, in spite of a severance. You can read the full article on my website, but I want to go through the 5 takeaways of the article. So, number 1, inventory your professional and personal goals. Assess this list and evaluate if your job is contributing to where you would like to go in life. Both your personal and professional lists can be separate from each other, but be sure to get detailed, from growing your family to saving for retirement, paying off student loans, or perhaps your bucket list of international destinations. Number 2, inventory your interests and passions. This is important because the passions that you have outside of work is what fuels you to be energized for work. If you aren't refueling, this leads to burnout. Some of your passions could be running, writing, poetry, cooking, painting, playing an instrument, or organizing your attic. That's not for me. These passions may or may not lead to a new career path, but should not be dismissed as it's a critical part of your daily life. In that question, or in this particular evaluation, you have to ask yourself, does my current job allow me time to rest, reset, and rejuvenate? Number 3, inventory your gifts, talents, and values. This may require asking those around you to tell you what your top characteristics are. This could be leadership skills, listening, encouraging, organizing, musical or artistic ability. There are many assessments on the market like the Enneagram or Strengths Finder. I would also recommend the Spiritual Gift Assessment tool. Be sure to write down your values and compare them to your personality test, and also compare them to your personal and professional goals. Don't forget that when evaluating your priorities in life for you and your family, aka your values, that there is also value in your past. The people that you have intersected paths with at old jobs or communities are potential connections to your path moving forward. Write out a full list of people who have had an influence on you and start connecting. Number 4, surround yourself with community. This next to last step is pretty critical. No decision in life should be made alone. We are humans and we're meant for connection. We need community of not only kindred spirits, but unique voices from different paths. Confide and discuss in detail this particular assessment with your significant other. And don't stop there. Contact your closest friends. Specifically pay attention to those who are a few steps ahead of you and can provide sound wisdom. And number 5, strategically plan and execute. At this point in your discovery process, you've probably been ignited with a few what-ifs. Maybe a dream that has been rekindled inside. This is no accident. You were created for a purpose and with desires that are uniquely wired for you. So if all the arrows are pointing to you to leave the job, plan carefully, make a budget, assess your savings, seek out a business coach, do your homework on startups, create a business plan, and most importantly, make sure that your family is on board. And if you need additional support, I encourage you to pick up the Who's Home Workbook, which is designed for families in chaos, families looking for a new mission, families sitting at the crossroads. Choosing to leave or stay at a workplace is a personal choice, but it has a ripple on lives, on society, on families. There are 2 million employees needing to make a decision. 2 million choices, 2 million stories, 2 million at this intersection. Let's revisit another crossroads story from this community, Greg's burning ladder. The original story aired in episode 53 on January 5th, 2025. If you missed it, Greg is taking a professional pause for a full year to travel the country with his wife and father-in-law in an RV. We're honored to be along for the virtual ride via this platform, and we'll be checking in throughout the year to hear about Greg's journey, his backstory, and everything that is ahead of him. We're following Greg because he is going against the cultural grain of what life is supposed to look like at midlife. That is the point of this community, the point of this platform, to introduce hope, ideas, and inspiration through stories for individuals at the crossroads of burnout or loss in the professional wilderness. Greg's journey is symbolic for the mission of Own Your 5 to 9, to live a life of purpose with integrity, to put God and family first, and to leave the earthly worries in the care of our Father. I had the privilege of crossing paths with Greg this past week in Graden Beach, Florida, for our first interview. Our conversation goes deep into Greg's backstory of why he is taking a year off work. We'll be back with the interview after this break. This episode is brought to you by Own Your 5 to 9, an organization committed to freeing families of the rat race and burnout. Every organization has a leader, mission, and a set of values that drives the organization. But this is commonly missed in the most important organization in the world, the family. An organization has one mission for how it will impact the world. Why not the family? An organization goes into strategic planning routinely to align its values, mission, and projects. Why not the family? Whose Home, a strategic planning guide for families, is a workbook and a tool needed in all households. Whose Home takes a strategic planning approach with 10 guided exercises to define your core family values, family mission, and tools to operationalize how your family does life together. If your family is facing a big decision, Whose Home is for you. If you're considering a career pivot, Whose Home is also for you. If you desire more intentionality and harmony in your home, Whose Home is for you. Create a healthy culture, not a hustle culture, at home. Visit ownyour5to9.com to claim your copy today. Okay, we are sitting here at a coffee shop at Graden Beach, Florida. My good friend Greg, who I haven't seen since 2018. Wow, 6 years, and we are back together on Greg's burning ladder, his professional gap year. So anyway, let's get right into it. Greg, how long has it been since you all hit the road?
Yesterday was 4 weeks, so today's 4 weeks in one day.
Wow. And how many stops have you made?
This is our 6th, I believe. Yeah, 6th or 7th.
And, how has the first 4 weeks gone? The highs, lows?
Yeah, well, it started out a little rough. Couple things. One, I was really sick. I'm not sure with what for the first 2 or 2.5 days. So slept and did just about nothing. And then we had some issues with the RV, a broken toilet flusher on our way from the first camp or state park to the second. We blew a tire on the camper. Had a little water leak. But all of those things irreparable in a hurry, and the weather was a little sketchy for the first 2 days, so we spent more time indoors and maybe watching more TV than I ever expected. But the last 10 days or so have been beautiful, so we've been inside the camper to basically sleep and not even really prepare much food because I'm doing most of that outside. So it's been great to enjoy the outdoors and being connected with nature, kind of like we had planned on much of it, and making the space not necessarily the 200 square feet inside of our camper, but the campsite around it, and more importantly, the big world all around it inside the state parks and the areas where we're at, like Grayton Beach, which is a great place to go check places out.
That's awesome. So in the first couple of weeks with the flat tire, the broken toilet flusher, and the flu bug, were you having any regrets or what am I doing type of thoughts?
No. It was one of those where I especially, and for my wife and my father, I put in their mindset of there's things going to go wrong with this camper when you're traveling 3, 4, 5, whatever, end up doing 1,000 miles. So the fact that it happened right off the bat, I think might have been a good thing. That's crazy to say, but they realize stuff's going to happen, and none of it, nothing so far has been, major or certainly life threatening or anything like that. So it's been just a reminder that things are going to go wrong when you're living in a mobile home, and that's okay. You just take some time and fix it. And I've had time, so it's all right.
So for anyone that didn't catch your original Burning Ladder story, you sold everything and put some of your belongings in storage. How did you get ready for the new routine of not waking up in your own bed? Now you're on the road. You're cooking your own food from a campfire perspective. Just how did you all adapt to building new routines on the road?
Well, part of it was, we've been camping in this camper since last March. 3 or 4 or 5 times last year for weekends or a week and things like that. And we've camped for years. So some of that is just adapting what you did for 2 or 3 or 4 days just to permanently. So not really that big a deal. There's some issues with how much space you have in a refrigerator in a camper versus and things like that. But again, everywhere we've been, other than when we're in the Everglades where you're 40 miles in from the entrance to go to a grocery store or something like that. All these state parks like here, we're close to a grocery store and things like that to be able to get water and food and all that kind of stuff. So it really hasn't affected us that much, but it's just basically been taking what we would do for 2 or 3 days and doing it permanently.
Right. So for things like laundry, doing dishes, things like that, first of all, how much did you pack? Or are there things that you wish you would have packed that maybe didn't fit?
Yeah, so not much. My sister and brother-in-law are staying in my father-in-law's house up near Tampa, and we were down south of Tampa last week. And they came and visited us. So we had the luxury of being able to have them bring a few things that we've either forgot and said, well, that would be nice, or ordered on Amazon, had them delivered to us. But otherwise, pretty minimalistic when you think about it. I mean, imagine if somebody is in a studio apartment in New York. It's like, how much can you fit in there, right? So there's only so much you can have and only so much we need with 3 of us for pots and pans and stuff like that. And as far as clothing, it's, we have a closet that's about 4 feet wide that can, put stuff in there, but there's a lot more storage than you think underneath the bed and underneath the couch and stuff like that, where you have room and cubby holes. So it hasn't been an issue. I haven't felt like I probably haven't worn a 10th of my clothes that I have at work. So put on the same pair of shorts almost every day. And the laundry that's the only thing we don't have in the camper that you'd think about at home. So we're doing dishes and cooking and all that stuff right at the camper. But laundry, we either do at the state parks. Most of them have, washer and dryer there. Or like when we were in the Everglades, we drove into town. Quite the experience that was. A little shock on how much it costs people to go and do laundry at a laundromat. But other than that, that's really the only inconvenience that we thought about, is, not, running downstairs and throwing in a little laundry whenever you want when you're in your house. But otherwise, the cooking and cleaning and all that stuff, we're cooking on a grill and a Blackstone, mainly outside, and we have an oven if we need it, small one in the camper, but I haven't really used that much. So a lot of that stuff hasn't really changed. It's just on a smaller scale than what you're used to at your house.
All right. So I know you budgeted for a full year of being on the road. So 4 weeks in? Are you above budget, below budget?
Yeah, I haven't broken down what we spent in January or the first 4 weeks yet, but I think it's going to be less than what we expected. And we didn't go in with we only want to spend this much so month. We have kind of a lump sum that we kind of figured hey, when this runs out, I'll think about what I'm going to do next to earn an income or to sustain. But we've only gone out to eat a couple times. So if we stick with that, and we've done some experiences and things like that, but the staying in the camper is relatively cheap, especially at state parks. And if we're cooking our own food, we could do this a long time, I think, if we decided to stay in the camper permanently. So we'll see.
So I know this is your last stop in Florida. What's been the most exciting thing you've done or seen here in Florida?
There's been something at almost every park. Our first one was Blue Springs State Park, and it happened to be that week when the whole country was cold and snowy, and it was chilly down here too, like in the 30s. And so this is a spot where the manatees come into the spring because the water is warmer. But there was over 900 manatee in there one day, it's almost impossible to fathom that or visualize that. If you've never seen a manatee, it's crazy to see it like that. So that was really cool. The Everglades was disappointing, I would say, overall, but really cool to just experience that and be there. The weather was horrible and the mosquitoes were lifting us up and taking us away a couple days, but there's been something at each area, and just to be able to enjoy getting outside, whether that's walking, biking, or kayaking, or whatever we're doing. We're trying to do a little bit of that at almost every spot that we stop at.
Great. Have you gotten bored yet?
No. When I get bored, I either take a nap or just pick up a book. So I haven't had to worry about being bored yet.
Well, that's good. What are you reading?
My daughter got me a book that's called A Walk in the Park, which I've mostly been reading. It's about a guy, he writes the story of he and his partner and then some other people who joined them through this trek through the entire Grand Canyon from one end to the other. So I've been reading that, and one of the things I kind of committed to as a goal is to read the Bible a little bit every day. So I haven't stuck to that reading every day, but I have read quite a bit. So I plan on going from start to finish with that. So right. I'm somewhere in Exodus right now. So I'm not very far into it, but
you're on your own Exodus.
The two things mainly that I've been reading at this point.
Okay. Let's take a look back. And this point last year, or maybe even a little bit earlier, when did you know that it was time to make a change in your career?
Yeah, I think it was probably a little earlier than that. So Nicole's mom died in late 2022 from frontal temporal dementia, and it comes with a little bit of risk for Nicole from a genetics speaking that she is more likely to have it too. And so at the same time, there was some really people close to us, especially Nicole, that either got some illness, cancers, things like that, or some people in my family and some friends with, all sorts of different things, and ailments, whether mentally or physically. And it's kind of hit us at that point of well, why would we wait and do what we're supposed to do? I use air quotes, was supposed to do, and retire at 65 and go do this. And that's part of why my father-in-law is with is, they dreamt about doing this when they retired and they were never able to because my mother-in-law was diagnosed with frontal temporal dementia. It became a behavioral thing at first and then, a physical thing too. So I think you've heard me say well, why not now? So we've really embraced that even more now. And now that we've been doing it for a month, I wish I would have done it a couple years, or, even a little bit sooner, but it's been good. I mean, from that, the planning part really was instigated by those health things and not wanting to fall into that spot that some other people that we knew. So that's really what started the idea. I think it started with one day I said, let's just throw a dart at a map and go there. And then it evolved into, let's get a camper and travel the country because there's so many spots we haven't seen. And then it evolved into Nicole wanting to say, I'm not going to do it without my dad, which has been all good. So that's kind of the whole cycle of it. But it really started after Nicole's mom passed, and in late 2022 was really the impetus for starting to think about what we're doing right now.
Okay. What was the biggest challenge in the preparations?
Part of why we're able to do this is with the sale of our home and the fortunate timing of when we moved to Florida for the job at Big Brothers Big Sisters, and the equity we built up to be able to say, well, let's not work for a year, which, I think at first might have been the craziest thing to think about. But then when you started practically thinking about it, it's like, no, we can do this. And again, why not do it now? So that was the challenge, is figuring out, could we have done it without selling our house? Maybe. But this made it a lot more feasible and a lot more practical to, one, not have a house to worry about, and also have the finances to come out of that equity with the sale to be able to say, hey, let's put aside a part of that and go travel for, 9 months or a year, whatever it ends up being.
Good. I know that you are empty nesters. What did your kids think about this? Do they think you're crazy?
Yeah, I just asked my son, who's 19, that the other day. He came and visited us. He's here with us now in Grayton Beach because he's in Tallahassee. But I said, did you think we were crazy? And he goes, no, he was just more so wondering how we're able to do it. So I had a great conversation about like the finances and the practicality of dollars and how that works and stuff. So all three of my kids, I think, are very understanding they were very close with their grandma and, what she went through and what that meant to care for her, which, Nicole did a big portion of it, my father-in-law did, and they all helped out when they were home. So I think there was an understanding there of the why not now. I think they get that probably more than anybody. But I still think they probably think we're a little crazy to go do it.
So, I know you're going to Texas next, and you have various other states as a target. What are you most excited about in your upcoming travels?
Yeah, from here, we're headed to New Orleans, where we're going to be there, and we've been there once, but I'm excited to be back there. And then in all over southern Texas, where we're going to be, is places we've never been. And actually, every spot we've been to this point is a spot we've never been to before, even though we lived in Florida. So all 6 of our spots, all these state parks and Everglades and things like that, we've never been. Well, the Everglades we've been to, that's the one exception, but all the other state parks. So getting to see a different part of Texas, we're going to be right along the border. So maybe we hop across the border, which is kind of exciting and intriguing, but maybe a little weird with all the stuff going on politically and things like that. But, getting to see new places, meeting new people. It's been astonishing to see how many people are doing what we're doing. And, majority of them maybe at retired age, but a lot of people our age and younger doing it too for various different reasons. So that's been really cool too.
Right. Before we hit the record button, we talked about your purpose in life and transitioning to a new purpose. Do you believe it's in the cards for you to help people that are a couple steps behind you to find similar paths? Potentially those that are in high-functioning executive positions to take a break, or to find their definition of work-life balance?
Yeah, I don't know. I've kind of given myself the grace of just, I don't know if it's going to be, another month from now or 2 months, but just not really thinking about too much of what's next from a professional standpoint or from a, an income or, the standpoint with it. But I'm still, a month in, still giving myself that grace to not worry about it, not get stressed about it, which I don't think I will when I start thinking about it in all seriousness. But I don't know. I think I'm not eliminating anything. So, our chat before, or when somebody brings up about how about this, whatever that may be, I'm not eliminating anything immediately. So, I think that's the part that's most exciting. Is it could be any or a big range of things that is next for me professionally. And if we decide to keep on living in the RV, maybe there isn't a next thing. Yeah. There'll be something that's going to want to motivate me or I'll want to be motivated by, but I'm not worrying about it yet. So it might be a good question for 2 or 3 months from now.
Well, good. You, I've never brought this up with you before, but you seem not to be fearful about things that most common Americans are fearful of when the next paycheck is coming in, or financial stability for the future. Where have you gotten your fearlessness from? Is there a specific point, or were you just born this way to take risk?
Yeah, I don't know. I have never thought about that. So I know this, and I have it tattooed on my arm, and I think I've shared this with you before too, but the phrase of live simply, love generously, care deeply, speak kindly, and leave the rest to God. And literally, that's the beauty of this last month. If we just do, maybe living by that allowed us to get to here, but even more just embracing that now. Just we're living simply,
Yes.
and trying to love generously and care deeply and speak kindly with it, and leave all the rest to it. Nicole and I are both big believers that everything happens for a reason, and so we really believe this is what we're supposed to be doing and how we're doing it with her, with her dad and everything. So, just trying to embrace that part of it. Of if you really do those 5 things that quote says, you really don't have to worry or stress out about too much stuff beyond that. So that's the basis for everything for me.
That's awesome. It is Nicole and your father-in-law, are they having just as much of a great time and with the refreshed perspective of what you're doing?
I think so. I should ask them that, but I think, other than the hiccups of the weather and, horrible mosquitoes in the Everglades or whatever, I think they're both having a really good time. And I don't think either one of them would say, well, I wish we had done this or wish we were doing anything different, especially now that, we've gotten to nicer weather here and spots, again, that we're enjoying that we've never been to, and just having the time to relax. The days fly by, I can tell you that. It's crazy. And, all of a sudden I'll be like, hey, it's 4:00 again. So I think that's a good question to ask them some down the line, but I think that they're both enjoying the adventure so far.
Okay. Well, one of my final questions here comes around the leap of faith. You've taken a different type of leap. Gap years in the middle age are rare. What would be your advice, I would say, for individually or for couples for communicating and planning around taking the leap of faith? Or if you're in a professional burnout or professional crossroads for taking, what advice would you give to anyone that's in a similar predicament?
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to, we've never been into stuff, we've never driven a fancy car. Yes, we had a nice house, but nothing, we're joking about that at one of our last stops where these multi-million-dollar houses on the beach is like, well, what would somebody do with that, type thing. So for us, it's about just being grounded in that, stuff doesn't get you anything. So being grounded in, like, for those that have kids, well, you're a perfect example of that, right? You don't have to be like, well, the school year is this, and this is when we got to be in the home. So just being open to that. For us, being empty nesters now, it's really about embracing the fact that, I don't want to say we did our job and we're done raising your kids. You're always going to be doing that, but being proud in that we've raised 3 good kids who are fundamentally sound and can function on their own, and, not having to worry about that on a daily basis. I think it's a matter of, experiences are far more fun than stuff to us. And I think if more people would realize that, you'd be able to, I think people think they can't do what we're doing. Well, it's because you're buying too much stuff and spending too much money and too much time on stuff rather than experiences and the people you're going to experience them with.
That's right.
So.
That's great advice. Greg, I'm going to end it right there. We're going to do this again, maybe next month, maybe even sooner, but I appreciate it.
I hope I get to see you again next month or somewhere that's not 6 years.
Tell me where you're going. I will meet you there.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Work-Life Eubiosis podcast, part of the work-life resources created by Own Your 5 to 9. I hope that you have found encouragement and a few ideas to strengthen your journey to purpose, freedom, and balance. Have you overcome burnout and found a new way of life? Millions around the globe are still at the risk of burnout and losing it all. And your story may be the one that sparks not only a dream, but action. Visit ownyour5to9.com for more information and submit your story. While you're there, join the Work-Life Eubiosis newsletter and receive additional resources weekly right to your inbox. If you enjoy this podcast, take time to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Share it with a friend or loved one. Remember, the most important organization in the world is the family. Let's do our part to strengthen it. Thank you for listening.